Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's keeping safe and doing as well as possible under the circumstances. Right, we're eagerly waiting for the first question of the evening. Um, but let me just take advantage of this time to announce that Baruch Shem, Chasdei Hashem Yisborach, my eldest son, who's married and learning in Kailan Eretz, had our first granddaughter. Um, and that has motivated me to put out a Sphera reader. So listen, if you want to join my mailing list, because I'm mailing out tomorrow a PDF, a 5-chapter reader on Sphera Omer to explain the whole Omer process from after Pesach through Lag BaOmer. The special avoda that's the week of Shavuos. Shavuos will be a separate Shavuos reader, which I'll be happy to, I'll be sending out closer to the time. So if you want to join my mailing list and get this PDF, so go to the website. You see on the upper right-hand side of the screen, evanshasir.com. You'll find that PDF posted on the website. And you can also hit ask the rabbi to reach out to me and ask me also to be added to my mailing list. So don't miss it. Look for it tomorrow. Sphera Omer reader. It's being distributed free of charge, all in honor of the birth of my first grandchild, my granddaughter. She should live and be well. The Torah. Okay, we have our first question of the evening. What is Rabbi's view on neo-Hasidism? Will it have any impact on yeshivot? Okay. Now, I can't say I know too much about this movement. I only know it from afar and from very afar. And I have a feeling that it's not an organized movement of any type. I think there's a lot of rabbis, leaders, charismatic individuals that people may lump together as neo-Hasidism, but I don't think they're all miksha achas as in a solid piece of that they have a uniform philosophy, or they are in any type of unified activity. Certainly nothing like an organized activity, to influence and change the world. So, so taking the second question first will have an impact on yeshivas, on the yeshivot, as you call it. Only in the following way, right? That sadly, yeshivas are like any other company, and there's competition. There's appeal to attract students, and so our yeshivas sometimes are not doing things which are necessarily the best things educationally, but they're looking at the competition, what the yeshiva, down the street, or they're what they're doing, and they imitate what they think that they're doing right and is attractive. Really, you've hit a sore point with me. I'm the wrong person to ask about this. My Rabbi, Rav Yaakov Weinberg, Zechron Livracha, Mary Yisrael, and Rav Moshe Shapiro, Zechron Livracha, who I learned by and I was very close to in the course of my decades in Israel. They had a very dim view of the establishment. So very simply, I'll just tell it to you straight. If it catches on, neo-Hasidism, whatever it means, if whatever it means catches on and is very appealing to the students, they're going to have to feel they're going to have to compete. They're going to have to incorporate elements in their curriculum well, or not even necessarily elements of the curriculum. They have to bring a guy that could be associated with the neo Hasidic movement, however you define it. Who, he gives his weekly class and he sits and he sings with the guys. Um, you know, and that's the answer. It'll affect the yeshivas if the yeshivas are feeling in any way threatened by it. So they'll cater, to make sure their customers, and sadly that's what it's become, their customers are happy. So that's the answer to the second question. Now, you know, I don't know anything about the neo Hasidic thing, and going back to my opening statement, the I don't think that it's an organized group or an organized philosophy. I think there are a bunch of call them the leaders, preachers, that people in their own minds assign these tags to them. I can't. I don't believe it's a real philosophy or real organized movement. I think every person who feels he has something in that style, we'll call it, to offer, just opens shop. I don't think there's a grand rebbe of any type that's guiding it or in any way, shape. I don't think they have a worked out philosophy. Let me just say like this. Um, you know, it, how should I say this in the nicest way? You know, you remember, I don't know how old you are, but there was a famous folk singer. One would call him the father of modern day Jewish music, Shlomo Carlebach. You know, and he had his songs, and he had his Torahs that were based on Hasidus. One could, discuss whether, his understandings of it, his applications of it. But here's the bottom line. Right? There's a lot of people that are from because he did his thing, his singing, his dancing, and these vertlach that he shared. And if I and if it's about giving a Jewish person a connection, a lifeline, okay, what could be wrong with that? What could be wrong with that if that's what the person needs, right? The real question is if a person is able, he has the time, the wherewithal, the ability to concentrate, to be connected to Judaism through limud Torah and through avodas Hashem. Uh, so if you could be eating, you pardon me, I mean no disrespect, but if you could be eating real food, you don't eat junk food. All right, so I think Rabbi Kalabach, Oliver Shalom, who was, by the way, a relative of mine, and I knew him, right, distant relative, and I knew him. I think Shlomo Kalabach, who was a Talmud from Lakewood Yeshiva, would be the first one to admit that he's not coming to, replace what's done in yeshivas. Now, it's for people that need it. So the answer is very simply that for people that need it, how can you say it's a bad thing if there are people that need it? That's what's keeping them going. The same thing goes about this, debate about things like NCSY, B'nai Akiva. I don't know if any things are still relevant. About when I was growing up, all these youth organizations, and some of them were co-ed, right? And people used to, from both sides, point fingers at each other. See, that guy was a good yeshiva guy, and that, this going to these youth organizations ruined it. And then you point, boy, but that guy, look, he was totally unaffiliated. He had nothing to do with, Judaism. And he went to these youth organizations, and now he's learning in Koilo, right? Everyone, and the truth is, everyone's right, and and everyone's not processing the data correctly. Talking about processing the data, which is the big dilemma that we're dealing with right now for understanding the coronavirus. Processing data. I'll tell you how I understand it. Right, very simply. Right, for the guy who seemingly was ruined by these youth organizations, I'll tell you exactly what happened. And go check me on this. Right. For him, it was a step down, right? So he was in yeshiva, let's say, by a higher, stricter standard, and he was compromising, compromising himself from the level he was accustomed to. So from where he was coming from, it's a step down. And Chazal tell us, Avera goreres Avera, right? The guy who today is in Kailo, but he was originally in public school from a totally assimilated family, and these things saved his life, and now he's in Kailo today. Very soon, when he joined his youth organization, for him it was a step up, right? And because for him it was a step up, so mitzvah goreres mitzvah. That's right. The exact same thing for this guy to step up because he's coming from less. For this guy to step down, he's coming from more, right? And that's why everyone's right and everyone's wrong. Everyone's right that it could be harmful. Everyone's right that it could be helpful. Everyone's wrong in the sense that everyone's processing the data incorrectly. For the person that's a step up for, it's good. And hopefully that one step up will lead to another step up, right? And hala and hala, mitzvah goreres mitzvah. Habola tara Messiah also, right? How many more chazals do you want me to quote? That the trend that you start, leads right into the very next step in the same direction. For the person that it was a step down, God help him. That once you start stepping down, where are you going to stop? Right? So this neo Hasidism, however you will define it, right? However you will define it, right? For those that it's keeping them connected, how can you say it's bad? For those who, for those that it's distracting them from their yeshiva studies and the heavy duty work that they've already been accustomed to. For them, it's bad, right? What we the yeshivas do, they're going to see, they'll go by, they'll see what their clientele wants. That's what the yeshivas do. I'll add one more word on the topic. Again, not knowing what neo-Hasidism is, but there's a great deal of misconception what Hasidus is about. Right now, I have dabbled in Hasidus quite a bit. And you know what? My Rabbi of Yaakov Weinberg, said the best exposition about what Chassidus is all about is the work of Rav Kloinemitz Kalman of PSF. And if you look at my Achshar Savrechem, it's totally worn out. I have read that book so many times, and it still gives me chizuk until this day. So I'll tell you what he says, right? He says, you know what the dirtiest word is? The most obscene thing you could say. The biggest lie there ever was. A Pashtuyin, a simple Jew. What the heck? Jews, Mamlechas Kohanim v'Goy Kodesh, we're now preparing for Matan Torah. We're the ones chosen by God, and He gave us His Torah that the angels wanted. A nation of priests and a holy nation. Skula mikol ha'amim. We have a neshama from under the Kitzur. There's such thing as a Pasha Jew, right? We're a nation of excellence, and in his opinion, Hasidus came to restore that excellence, right? And his approach is that in Hasidus is coming to not just to explain Kabbalah. That's how other Hasidim look at it. That Hasidus is a certain spin on Kabbalah with a avodah dika, with a spin on explaining Kabbalistic ideas, but with using it in avodas Hashem. He made it a little bit more precise and even raised the bar, in definition, that is. He says, Chassidus came to make us Nevi'im again. That's what he says. To go in Darkei Nevi'im. There's anything that propagates the big lie. That Chassidus is for simpletons or endorses being a simpleton, that is the biggest lie there ever was. Hasidus was actually an excellent type of movement. And originally, the Baal Shem Tov, the people that surrounded him were only very excellent people. Same thing with the Maggid. After that, they started these courts all right, I think I've said enough, but okay, I've said my piece. Any more questions? Or do you want to comment on what I've said? All right. Any more questions out there? Don't be bashful. Um, it's interesting, the Baal Shem Tov's Yortzeit is on Shavuos. It's all set the tone, you know, this was supposed to be a pathway to Torah, not a substitute, but a pathway, you know, to be connected. It should be Hasidus is to work more, not work less. Okay, so while we're waiting for the next question to pop on the screen, let's reflect a little bit. We spoke about this at great length in our last session. That there's something over here. America, Europe. Yeah. Okay. So just taking your second question first. All right. Not question, your statement. No. That is not true. I'm sorry to say that's not true. It is not true that Hasidus endorse being a simpleton. Not true at all. You know, it, you know, Hasidus does talk about, right, that that even a simple Jew has a very high neshama. A simple Jew has a very high neshama, right? That we're born holy, right? And therefore that we should the simple Jew should not be disregarded. We have to try to raise him up and actualize his potential. And also talks about another thing that Hasidus initially, you know, not just initially, I think consistently, we're very into avodas hamidas. They're very into the working on character traits and Hasidus didn't invent the idea, right? It's already in the Motzei form that predates Hasidus. Hasidus and also when Hasidus first started, what did they have? They had Motzei form until the Hasidic books started getting written. If they had text to ponder over, it was the Sifrei Motzei of the Rishonim, Bavas, Shari Chuv, Rabbeinu Yaina. That's what they used, until some of their own books became written. So they were very into the avoda of midas, and they were pointing out that gaiva, which is the worst midah. I mean, Hasidus didn't make that up. That's in the Rambam. That's everywhere. It is the Sharik Tusha of Chaim Vital. Yeah, we're in the Ramchal, and to defeat the midah of Daiva, which they were working on. So you have to, Mr. Strom, who predates Hasidus, says this, right? It's not enough. You'll find this also in the Igeres HaRamban, pretty much there. It's not enough to see you have to also view everyone else as better than you in some aspect. Even the simplest Jew, in a certain way, is better than you, right? Right, because he is serving as God as best as he knows how, and you're not. If you're so smart, then you should be much more serious about your Judaism, and in a certain way, you're guilty. So your added knowledge and yeshiva background makes you more guilty of what you're not doing right, as opposed to uneducated. It's not an endorsement of being uneducated. Right, that's what they spoke about these ideas to inculcate humility, but it's a grave error to say that they endorse being simplistic in the negative sense of the word. They talk about simple faith. That's something else. Simple faith doesn't mean being shallow-minded. Simple faith means non unconditional faith. That's what simple faith. And Emunah Pshuta means not simple. It's not translated correctly. It means not unconditional faith. Okay. But people, it's a terrible misinterpretation, really. Terrible miscarriage of justice. Hasidus was about excellence. It was not about simplicity, really. If certain people, grabbed onto the outer layer of it, that was a mistake. It's like an outer layer that even the Rebbes were upset about 100 years ago or so. Um, right. Anyway, look, we could keep on talking about this. But regarding your very last point, because I really want to get off this topic and deal with your question about secular studies, if I may. But I'll just give you the last point. I think I said this. Every Jew is born with a very high neshama that's carved out from under the kisei hakavod, right? And there's tremendous power, even the Jews saying Tehillim, uh, you know, uh, and that's part of the tragedy, right? And I'm quoting from the Chovas Talmidim, right? Or Klonimus comment of PSH, right? Says a prince is locked up in a jail, right? And okay, so he feels horrible. He feels horrible that he's in jail. It's terrible. It's disgusting. He's a prince, right? He's taken captive by a foreign nation, whatever. And what the biggest tragedy is? When the prince forgets that he's a prince and he's happy being in the slammer. That's the war, right? So yeah, so even a simple Jew, simple and uneducated, has a neshama from on high. A Jew has a connection, right? A Jew, we are born holy. That's Am Segula. We're treasured by Hashem, even if we're not worthy, right? But it's a tragedy if a person, so we're princes. We're all princes, right? And it's a tragedy that a prince should view himself as a simple person. A person should view himself as a prince, and as a result, it should bother him if he's not that educated, if he's not that zealous, and he should want to correct it, that his actions should reflect his innate greatness. Okay, but we've had enough of this. Let's talk about the secular studies issue, right? The next question that you have, right? So I used to think about this a great deal myself. My name Bechhofer. I'm a Yekka, and I have cousins, Bechhofers, who are descendants of Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. My uncle Jerry, Zechron Livracha, was married to Rav Breuer's daughter. She is still alive. He died, and she should live and be well. Meta Bechhofer, nay Breuer. So I have cousins that are descendants of Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. I'm a good Yekka, so I'm totally acquainted with the Talha im Derech Eretz. Combining Torah with professional studies and secular studies. The Hirschian idea, right? It's actually what I grew up on. But I spent, a solid half of my life or more in Israel, as an adolescent, as a yeshiva, and then as a married man, only moving back to America, less than 6 years ago after being there a straight 22-year stretch. All right, so I am actually very well acquainted with both sides of the coin. Not only that, my kids, when we were there, we were Haredim. We decided to go with the flow, right? And, not in any way, we wanted the kids to be fully integrated into the Haredi system. And so my kids were totally denied secular studies. Even the girls, they had only very little. And when we moved here, my kids felt so intellectually emancipated, right? Right. Yes, Marav Shiva, Rav Yaakov Weinberg, you would call him a defector. He was a Slonomer, and he was a grandson of the Slonomer Rebbe. Yes, became Litvish, but he always said, Yochanan, ich bin fort a chassid. I'm still a chassid. I think he had a very level-headed view. He wasn't one of these people that, because he had, on paper, switched sides, totally rejected Hasidus. Anyway, all right. Yeah, well, look, if you keep on shooting me questions, I can't get back to your issue about secular studies. Let's stick on the secular studies topic. Okay. So I myself have, in more ways than one, and even with my own family, and my own children, straddle both sides of the fence. Now, my daughter, who was in Seminary Yasham, Beis Yaakov Yashan, is now going to be a PhD student on full scholarship. She was in full scholarship in Columbia for electrical engineering. That's going to MIT, Bezras Hashem. right? And she has asked me why I raised them Haredi. She is taking so well and enjoying secular studies, the math, the physics, all the sciences. So it is a complicated issue, right? And actually, speaking of my Rashiva, I discussed this with him also. Look, if you read our literature, particularly the Rishonim, they may have had their disagreements about philosophy and studying Aristotle. Right? But I would challenge you to find me a Rishon that takes issue with the values of mathematics, chemistry, astronomy, right? You know, um, any of the above. We need some of these things in order to understand some sugyas. We need these things to understand life. The issue of philosophy was a heated one. Is philosophy helpful or is philosophy hurtful? Right, but the raw sciences and mathematics, I've never found anyone that any source that's evil. Right, it was the philosophy that was a very big debate. Okay, so we have to leave that aside. Yeah, well, we're not talking about philosophy per se and what went on, in the days of the Rajba, that they outlawed the learning of philosophy. And sometimes maybe the other secular studies also took a hit because sometimes it was taught package deal as philosophy. But there's but philosophy aside, the natural sciences and also earning a living, no one would disagree, right? Anyone who's studied the topic in earnest from the sources, no one disagreed that these things are valuable, and that was the Jewish way of life. We sought wisdom in general, wanted to be informed about secular knowledge, and also went to work, and learned the profession. Right, that was always the you know, age-old, Jewish value. Torah and derech eretz, as the Gemara says, it is in Brachas Daf Lamed Hey, right? Very few people were, the way of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, it's coming up. The way of Shimon Bar Yochai is only for the Yechidim, right? Only Rabbim, they have to do like Rabbi Shmuel, Hinag ben Minag derech eretz, you learn, but you also work. Right, very few, the rabbit, the multitudes, they can't handle the Rishon Bar Yochai way. And even Nefesh Chaim, who endorses Torah only, says it's for the Yechidim. It's for those Yechidim who can. Okay? So, but here's the thing, there's a terrible cultural war, right? Uh, that's still raging, particularly in Israel. In America, it's more now left versus right. The cultural war. It's not over secular. It's not coming as package deal with secular studies, right? But in Israel, it's still raging. Haredim versus that. And because it's a cultural war, in war you can't be balanced. You can't be normal, gung ho, right? It's so Rabbi Yisrael Salanter of the of the Musar movement. So as example of something going slightly extreme, let's say. So he said, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said that Adam who Medini, look, man is supposed to be a man of the state. You engage in politics and in professions, but minahechrech leo prushim. We have to be prushim. We have to be somewhat withdrawn from the secular world because of the raging evil, right? So so the Torah was preached a balanced life where a man is a medini, he's a statesman. A statesman means he's engaged with all the matters of the state and communal life and regular life. But the hechrech lios prushim, we're forced to be prushim. We are now forced to withdraw. Because here's the thing, if you know history, once they allowed Jews to study secular studies, For many years, it was impossible because you had to baptize if you want to go to university. Once they allowed people to attend, secular learning institutions without baptizing, a lot of people just couldn't handle the freedom, right? And they went off. It was just too tempting, too absorbing. So there was a countermeasure. Now, as I understand it, and this also, Maroshiva mentions this also, but I also read in other sources that in Germany, Torah and Derech Eretz caught on, and when, without mentioning names, certain German rabbis, who learned in the Eastern European yeshivas and liked the Torah-only approach, tried to bring it to Germany and tried to get rabbis to join, rabbis from the East to join the battle cry, right, against Torah and Derech Eretz. This same rabbi, whose name I will not name, he went to the Ger Rebbe, and the Ger Rebbe said, "You don't start up with Rav Hirsch and his derech." I mean to say, it was the right derech for Germany. The German Jew knew how to handle it, by and large. I'm not saying, and he's the Rav in Germany, and there was, whether it's the right approach for German people or go metaphysically, since Shimshon Hirsch was the Rav in Germany, and he was the Mora de Asra for many communities, including his own in Frankfurt. So there was Siyata Dishmai that approach worked, right? So now, speaking of Maroshiva, who was, no one would call him a standard, Rav Yaakov Weinberg of Ner Yisrael, but no one would call him a standard Litvisher Rosh Hashiva. Very educated, very open-minded. All right, so you don't call him Hasidic, don't call him Litvish. He was his own man, and studied everything and had his own learned opinion on everything from an enlightened, thought-out point of view. So he was asked this. I saw the transcript, by a Torah Masorah convention. Asked him, like, why is it in America we allow for secular studies and in Israel not? So he says, well, because the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael prohibit it, and therefore, if you try to go against it, you will not be successful. And these models of trying to be Haredi yet with secular studies, it never caught on and never worked overly successfully. And in America, the Rabbanim were for it, and that's why, as it were, you have your Mora Da'asa, the Rav of the town, right? That sets the psak, and according to the psak is also the help from heaven, because the Torah, God expects you to follow whoever your appointed rabbi is, and will run the world accordingly, with the psak that you've received. So in Eretz Yisrael, they were against it, and in America, they're for it, and that's why here we have it and it works, and over there they don't have it, and the places that kind of, for lack of a better word, rebel, they're not matzliach. Right, now you might ask, well, what prompted the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael to, be so anti? Why did they not want to open up and take on the Hirschian derech? Right, especially as Hirsch was anti-Zionist. Right, that's the amazing thing. Right, so why do they want to take the Hirschian derech? The answer is because in Israel there is a raging culture war. Right, it's one of the things I was going to mention. About Yom Ha'atzmaut, 72 years later, and the religious and secular still have not settled their differences. Right, they're still, and it's just, and because of the cultural war, in a state of war, you can't be compromising. Right, you won't be compromising, and you can't be. It's sadly the culture there set up as a cultural struggle. Right, so everyone's going to posture and dig in. Right, and that's why. So the rabbis over there gave the appropriate psak when things are in a state of war and contention. Right, there was a tremendous push, at the time of when the state was founded, to secularize, and even before that. So you push back and you go to the opposite extreme. That's what you have to do when you're tempted. That's the din of lifnim mishur sedin. The Ram brings in Ilchos Deis. When you feel you're being tempted, you can't just be on the middle balanced path, because you'll fall, because you're being tempted, you're being pulled. You have to counterbalance the pull and be a little bit to the opposite side. It says so in all this form. The Rambam says that. The Rambam preached the middle balanced path. Right? So that's why, because there's a culture kampf in Israel, that's why the Haredim there are so non-receptive to any type of secular studies or even going to work. That's it. Sad. That's the way it is. That's one of the sad things. And Yom Ha'atzmaut, 72 years, and they still haven't resolved their differences. And we said this last Saturday night when we had the last forum, right? Because at the time when Ben Gurion and the Chazon Ish and whenever all the deals of the status quo were made, each side made the deal thinking that the other side is not going to be around for long. Right? Whether they thought the state would collapse, whether they thought that the religious thought they would be machzir all the secular people b'tshuva, whether the secular thought they would secularize all the Haredim. All right, so they made all these agreements, thinking that it'll just be an issue of 10, 20 years. All right, all sides, miscalculated that one. That's why you have the society in Israel that you have today. Okay, are there any more questions? Any more questions or comments? All right. There are 3 viewers in the room currently, unless someone's just clicked on but walked away from his screen. But there's only been 1 active participant. Now there are 4 people. Hey, go ahead. Don't be bashful. Put a question on the screen. Don't have to use your real name. All right. And by the way, don't feel bad if you missed this. Any part of this presentation, it will be recorded. It'll be available on this channel for download. By the way, subscribe to this channel so you always get notifications when I go on air. One more thing I want to say before I address the question just came on the screen. As I said at the very beginning of this session, right, in honor of the birth of my granddaughter, my first granddaughter, she should live and be well. To my son who's learning in Kollel and Eretz Yisrael, I'm putting out a Sphira reader, a whole nice reader on 5 chapters that explain the whole Sphira process from after Pesach through Lag BaOmer. There'll be another reader for Shavuos, Be'ezer Hashem, Bli Neder. So, go to the website that you see, upper right corner. I mean, the screen is upper left. Sorry, upper left corner, evansia.com. Get it, download it. It's free. It's Sphira reader. Print out. You can read at home. Thank you, Figure was Bruchim to you. So get the Sphira reader. Don't miss out. And also at that website, you could also hit the Ask the Rabbi button and submit a question for the next time we go on air. And also get added to my mailing list. So you don't have to necessarily go to the site all the time. Sometimes you'll get some of my PDFs or some of my audios in direct mail. Okay, so what question do we have? We have to get up close to the screen. Understand that we have a whole Torah that guide every aspect of life, and there are parts we have not followed correctly, yet it seems to be impossible to get through life without sinning. Impossible to get through life. Well, let's go step by step. First of all, there's what's necessarily true, and then there's what's highly improbable. Right? Highly probable, highly improbable. It is not impossible to get through life without sinning. It's not impossible. It's just highly improbable because you're, as the Mesilas Yesharim says, at the beginning of the book, we're tempted constantly from every angle, and it's human to fail here or there, but it is definitely theoretically possible, right? Right, but Chazal do count, 3 or 4 people that died without sin. Yishai, the father of David, Kalev, the son of David, Amram, the father of Moshe. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Binyamin also, was also in that. So even Moshe, lack of a better word, for lack of a better word, screwed up. I mean, of course, we should be slow. But here's the point. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva, right? Parakeh, halacha, for his treatise on free will, is that a person could be as righteous as Moshe, as tzaddik Moshe. He may not be able to be a prophet like Moshe, because his unique level of prophecy was a pure gift from God, and had to be that way. That way his level of prophecy, since it's a supreme level that was a gift from God, no one could duplicate it. That's what protects us from a charlatan coming and saying, I'm a prophet as big as Moshe, and now God has canceled those orders that he gave you through Moshe, and here's the new set of orders. Understand the necessity of why Chazal and Rambam made it one of his 13 Ikarim, that Moshe has a supreme level of prophecy that's not possible to duplicate. But we're not talking about Moshe's level of prophecy, we're talking about his righteousness. The Rambam writes this. Every person can be tzaddik to Moshe. It's not easy, it's hard work. And it's possible, may not be, probable. Right? So, it's you have to look at this, that the Torah gave us work to do, and the more you work, the more you get. The more you work, the more you get. Now, to make it to Olam Haba, which is the supreme pleasure, so we could get there in the more. There's a basic way, that's not the most glorious way, but it's a basic way common to all Jews, right? And then there's the honorable way, which is hard yet easy, as I'll explain. And both sources I'm quoting to you come from the Rambam. Right, the Rambam, we mentioned his 13 Ikarim a second ago. It's 13 principles of faith. The Rambam, and by the way, on this channel, we started giving a series based on my book. I wrote a book on the 13 principles of faith in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh, and I'm giving it over in English. And I took a break, but I will resume that series. Right, but the Rambam guarantees you, anyone who accepts these 13 Ikarim is guaranteed a portion in the world to come. Guaranteed. Now, you're going to pay for whatever you did wrong. But look at this. Look at the thing. The only thing you did right, as it were, is that you believe that the Torah is true. And you have to pay for whatever you did wrong. There's no free ride. It's not. There's reward and punishment. But look at what Hashem will do. He will give you atonement, everything. He's not going to say, "Well, listen, you weren't so good, so you're not getting Olam Haba. So I won't give you Olam Haba. I won't punish you." No. I'll give you Olam Haba. I'll just punish you for everything you did. Right? And that's the way, and that's his understanding of what the Mishnah means. Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek l'olam haba. Right? Every Jew has a chelek in l'olam haba. So it's he says the Mishnah not to be taken literally. You just have it because you're born Jewish. So you have it, to be part of the Jewish people. You got to buy in, and you buy into the truth of Torah that made us a nation. I believe it's 13 Ikarim. That's not that hard. So you do a lot of things wrong, you'll pay for whatever you did wrong. You're still going to have Olam Haba. You still have immortality and enjoy the divine aura, which is the greatest pleasure possible. Right? So isn't it worth it? Right? Not easy. Right? Not easy. It's not. It's no closer. It's more comfortable to have not been created. It's not easy, but it's not hard once you're here already. Once you're here already, it's not hard to make it to Olam Haba if you at least accept the Torah as being absolute truth, which is the message that emerges when you accept all the 13 principles. Right? Okay. But then there's a more honorable way, right, to be Zocheh to Olam Haba, which also is from the Rambam, and it's an interesting thing. It's both hard and easy at the same time. Right? We're talking about now an honorable earning of Olam Haba, not just getting it because in the merit of faith, which can no free lunch. You'll always be punished whatever you do wrong. But look, the boss going not say you're not so good, I'm not going to give you Olam Haba. He'll give you Olam Haba, but he'll punish you, and he'll give you atonement after you did wrong to clean you up for the Olam Haba you get for your faith. But there's a way to actually be Kona Olam Haba in an honorable way, and it's enough to just do it once. The Rambam is in the Pirush HaMishnayos on the famous Mishnah that we say it's the last Mishnah in Makos, which is always for some reason said at the end of every parak of Pirkei Avos that we read during the summer months. Kosher wanted to add merit to do. Therefore, he gave them a lot of Torah and a lot of business. So everyone here should be immediately. It's a simple question everyone should ask. You want to increase our merit? Give us less work to do. We have more chance of getting it done. Right? That's the obvious question everyone asks. Right? That is the question. Classical question at Mishnah. Give us less work, not more. If you want to increase our merit, give us less work to do, we'll look better, right? Lower the expectations, we'll look better, right? Now, of course, there's many answers to this, but I'll tell you what the Rambam says, an amazing Rambam. And it's in his Pirush HaMishna, it's right there. And he says, right, if you do one mitzvah once, but perfectly, that means there was a certain element of self-sacrifice. And you did it 100% l'shem shamayim, no self-aggrandizement, not to impress anybody. If you could just do one mitzvah once perfectly, that's a mitzvah that's worth olam haba. Other mitzvahs don't really. Why is it worth olam haba? Right? If I shake a lulav, which is like, it's basically the equivalent of, as far as physical work, right? You shake a broom in all directions, right? Heavy broom makes a difference, right? And you say, if you give me 5,000, I'd say you were overpaid, and now we shake lulav, we get olam haba for it. And there's a lot of answers why it is, but it says in the Rambam, you want to know a mitzvah that's really worth olam haba, that's called you earned olam haba. You didn't get it as, as a chesed, right? Is when you do a mitzvah perfectly, do a mitzvah b'shleimus, right? There's a certain element that it cost you, and you overcame, and there was a certain sense of sacrifice and a certain sense of, and it was 100% altruistic, right? With that olam haba. So therefore, says the Rambam, based on its model, which on one end is easy and the other end is hard, right? Easy in the sense only has to be once. Hard in the sense that, hard is that whoever did a mitzvah perfectly. Scary, right? But the Rambam says out of 613 mitzvahs, different mitzvahs, there'll be one, so having a wide range, so maybe you're not successful to connect to the other 612, but out of 613, you'll find one that at least you can do perfectly once, right? So yes, you can punish whatever you do wrong, but we could be. It is not hard to be zoche to olam haba. It is not hard to be zoche to olam haba, right? It's not even that hard to be called a tzaddik in the normative sense of the word. It's not. Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva, just do more good than bad. Just do more good than bad. That's called to be a tzaddik as far as to pass the annual test of Rosh Hashanah. So yes, it's hard work, and you get punished whatever you did wrong, but it's not that hard to succeed, to merit life on Rosh Hashanah. It's not that hard to succeed to merit olam haba. Okay. There are many. There are some questions here about Shapira. But I'd rather deal right now for the the questions in Hashkafa. If there's time, I'll be happy to discuss questions about my Rabbi and what I learned by. Let's say Abe A. How does one understand the Satmar Rashid of the steak being a matzah son and to draw it together with the classic Hasidic thought with everything inner good to be revealed? Okay. Now you guys are not giving me an easy time. Okay. It is not fair for me to speak for the Satmar Rebbe. I never. He died when I was barely bar mitzvah, and I did dabble a little bit in his Ayol Moshe, but not to the point that I would call myself proficient. Okay? But of course, God forbid that the Satmar Rebbe will believe in Chas v'Shalom Shnei Reshuyos, but that there's, as two different domains. I mean, it is. It's not just Chassidus. It's right. It's not. Chassidus just made popularized the idea. It is a basic tenet in Judaism, in the absolute monotheism that is Judaism alone, as the Ramchal, who predates Chassidus, says in the doctrine. It's the only true monotheism is Judaism, because only Judaism preaches that God is the one and only real power. Okay, so this is not Chassidus. Chassidus popularized an idea that is that is in Jewish philosophy, and not just in Jewish philosophy, as in that only if you're a deep guy do you know this. It really is already alluded to Seres HaDibros. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem, I am the one power, created everything. Lo yachal him acherim. There's no other power. Don't believe that there's any other power. We're prohibited from believing that there's another, even if you serve God, we are prohibited from believing that there's another power out there. This is the most basic message of Judaism. There's only one, not just there's only one good God. There's only one absolute power. All right, and that's Hashem. Everything else works for him. Even those who don't know that they work for him. Good. Okay, so therefore, so Mas says something. So I don't know. Let's bring a chazal. That just comes to mind. That we have a source that Avram was going to the Akedah, right? The supreme test, and the son, wanted to try to trip him up. He should fail that test, and then made an illusion of a river, right? It'd be impossible to cross, right? And which, by the way, I saw somewhere that's also one of the significances of going to Tashlich on Rosh Hashanah, to remember the schus of Akedah Yitzchak, that Rabbi was willing to go through a very deep river, right? So I ask you a question. Did the son have God's permission to do that, yes or no? The answer is yes. The son has a function. His function is to tempt us. And he's been given like a latitude, all by divine permission, to tempt us and to try to trip us up. So I can only say that I assume that what Satan Rebbe meant, if he indeed said it, that the Medina and all the Muhammads that we were Matzliach and all my son, I have to that God is doing it to tempt us, allowing the son to do his job of tempting us, that we shouldn't tempt us into becoming secular Zionists. So that's what he meant, and yes, and God allows the son latitude to do stuff to test us, right? And Chazal say, "Who are Yetzirah, who are Satan, who Machmas?" They're all the same. They're all functions of the same, cosmic power. The Yetzirah is in you. The Yetzirah is in you. It's tempting you. God gave it to you. God allowed, just like He allows the Yetzirah to do His thing inside of you. He allows the son to do what he does to you outside of you, which includes, by the way, God gives the son permission to prosecute against you. He gives him permission, right? And then he's the Malcham of us, right? So it's all by divine permission. Of course, who set up someone that we have to spar against, right? The son can't do anything Hashem doesn't want. Or as Satmarov said, supposedly, I don't know if he really said, but that the Medina is something that Hashem is allowing us, the son, to tempt us with. We should not give in to that temptation. By the way, I saw something very similar in the name of the Chazon Ish. Just he didn't say the word son, right? The Chazon Ish said, it says it, Revolba, something that we trust, Revolba, who wrote the Alei Shor, right? When I was a kid, it was really a very hot Mutzer book. What was a really big, it was the Alei Shor Chelik Sheni, right? So Revolba, right? I think it's in his thing called Ben Sheshes L'Otzar, right? His collection of shmuz he gave between Sheshes, the same war, and also the Yom Kippur War, coming out of the 10th of Nisan of Tishrei. So Ulai Nisan Achron Fnei Bias HaMashiach, perhaps the Medina is the last big temptation, our last big major test before Mashiach comes. I don't mean to say, test, as a lot of people were taken with the nationalism, and fell into secularism because of it. And I assume that's what the Satmar Rebbe meant. But it is a question best addressed to someone who may have been a close talmid of the Satmar. Okay, has the Musar movement been successful? No, the Musar movement has failed. Right, and I say that in the name of my Rosh Yeshiva, Yaakov Weinberg. Again, as I told you, Yaakov Weinberg was a man, self-made man, came from a Somer background, learned in Litvishe yeshivas after learning in Yerushalmi yeshivas, and did his own research. He was very eclectic and very well read, and had his opinion on everything from a learned perspective. He had a learned opinion on everything. Yeah. So actually, you mentioned Hasidus earlier, right? Right. So in a sense like this, what does it mean Musar failed? And I heard it said his name, and then I asked him about it. So listen to me. The big irony about Hasidus versus Musar is that these two movements, to whatever extent they still exist, as a real, genuine continuation to their point of origin, these two movements had a reverse. Hasidus was for the excellent, like I told you before, for those who were here at this session, right? Right, Hasidus was to promote a form of excellence, right? It was misconstrued as being, coming at the expense of Torah study because they were working on character, but it was a form of excellence. And those people surrounding the Baal Shem Tov and those surrounding the Mezrich Ramagi were not common folk. And even like the original people surrounding the Baal Tanya and many others, excellent people in search of excellence. Right? But it became somehow a mass movement that which gives it, for this misinterpretation of what it's about. But it's all caught on. It captured the imagination of the masses, and I guess Meis Hashem Hoisos because it kept them connected. So Hasidus was meant for the excellent, and it became a mass movement. Musar was just the opposite. Musar, originally, was supposed to be for every Jew, right? And the idea was to set up a base on Musar, a place of Musar where people go and not just learn the Musar text, but also meditate on Musar ideas and have a private corner to do his bodhidus in every town, right? It wasn't meant for yeshivas, right? It failed in the sense that it didn't catch on as a popular movement at all, right? So now, very quickly in the next generation, they realized what was going on, and they made it a yeshiva thing, right? There were Motzei yeshivas, right? But that's what it became because it failed to catch on as a popular movement, right? So now, this is what I heard in name of yeshiva. So now I went back to my yeshiva after I heard this in his name, and I asked him about it. And so, well, look, Yochanan, he told me, how can you say Musar failed, right? If in the end, it gave us Slabotka. It gave us Slabotka as an example, as a very prime example. And all the Rosh Yeshivas came from Slabotka, all the Rosh Yeshivas that, by and large, many to most, Slabotka and its offshoots, or a lot of Rosh they all did time in Slabotka. Right? So the Rosh Yeshivas that rebuilt the Torah after the Shoah, right? They all came from Slabotka. So how can you say the Muslim movement failed? Right? It gave us Slabotka. Slabotka, came to Rosh Yeshiva that rebuilt the Torah after the Holocaust. Right? So, it's, how do you look at it? Right? If not for the Musar movement, the Musar yeshivas, the Musar yeshivas are the ones that endured. The non-Musar yeshivas were, the yeshivas that kept strong, and the yeshiva bachurim that didn't, that really stayed committed to Judaism were the ones in the Motzei yeshivas. Right? So did it fail? You can't really call it failure if it gave us those giants, few in number, that rebuilt the entirety of Torah. So, but one would still say that, what do we have that resembles the Musar movement, the Musar yeshivas in Europe? We don't have any of that anymore. We don't have everyone will admit that, everyone knows Musar Seder in the yeshivas is the wasted half an hour. Everyone knows that, right? Now, if there's a yeshiva where that's not the case, please let me know. I would, but this has been, since I was a kid. Musar Seder is like, that's the throwaway Seder, you know. Um, so, okay, those are my thoughts. I don't think I've had any explanation. Um, yeah, Novartis was the best. Now, please, I know that there's Beis Yosef. There are places that will identify as Beis Yosef Novartis, but they're not Novartis. It's a continual. The founding Rosh Yeshivas were from Novartis, but you're right. I have to, yes, I have to not only agree with you, Novartis, but Stipler, Chaim Kanievsky's father was a Novartiker, right? Novartik was a very powerful Hasidic network, and I'm sorry, network of Muslims, right? And they learned Torah and Mesiras Nefesh under the communists. And yeah, Novartik was Givaldic in its heyday. It was Givaldic. And I'll tell you even more, speaking from personal experience, in my perusal of Lithuanian Musar, yeah, most of it does not speak to me. Whatever, I learned Ramchal, I learned Maharal. I like a little bit of the Shurei Das because of how he deals with these type of ideas. And I read the Alter Shmuz and I read other stuff from the Alter Kalam, and it doesn't grip me, right? I love Madrei Pesach. I learned that sefer from cover to cover more than once. I love Madrei. In my opinion, the stuff of the Alter Novartik is the best of the Shmuz. Yes, the best. But even these places that call themselves Beis Yosef, they're not doing Navarre. You know, they call themselves that because their Rosh Yeshiva are somehow in line of succession, generation to generation. But the Navarre Derech, and then the pukulas that they used to do, and these boydus, and that doesn't exist. But can we say that it failed if it gave us the Rosh Yeshiva that rebuilt us after the Shoah? All right, we'll take one more question. We're already over time. Right, why is the Brisker Derek captured the world? Why is the Brisker Derek? Look, well, there's two answers to that. There's the there's the Brisker Derek. Well, look, at the time it was very exciting, and look, the for lack of a better word, called scientific thought or philosophical thought. But Reb Chaim was really, the shift in that way of thinking. And it didn't start with Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim, cranked it up, to a new level, right? But you start seeing that the type of shift of an approach already from the sociology. Right? See this. Reb Chaim used a lot. They started this more of this one in the Minchas Chinuch, scientific way of qualifying things, scientific or philosophical way. Now the truth is that it was actually a return to the way we used to originally learn. In the words of the Netziv, when he listened in on a shir Chaim was saying, he said, "Erzat Rishendik." He says like a Rishon, right? It went, because the Rishonim really are, pretty much, they don't make these long, lengthy calculations. They try to say a definition of the din, right? So it's kind of going back to the way the Rishonim learned. Is really what it is. And the word, also says that Rav Avram Elia Kaplan. Rav Avram Elia Kaplan, a famous individual. He was a Talzer. He went defected to Slobodka, and then he afterwards, yeah, the yeah, he was a Rosh Yeshiva of the Rabbiner seminar in Berlin. So, so the so he said that he also defined it that way. That the brisker derech is to go back to the way to return and learn. He said once we went back in that way of thinking, let us go back to let us go back to that way of writing. He says, we showed him right short. Let's just write short and to the point, because a lot of the shiurim of the Rosh Yeshiva wrote at great length, and trying to prove their case, we have to say, and he says, let's make the revolution complete. Right, so it's look, it's a more 20th century way of thinking. It fits better on the 20th century type of mind. Now, the fact that it caught on in Europe, that's the explanation. It was fresh, it was new, it was exciting. It was a type of intellectual competition for universities. It was we had to counterbalance the Haskalah. I'm not saying other things I've read elsewhere. Counterbalance the Haskalah, right? Right, and and so this provided serious intellectual stimulation. So at least you could feel in yeshiva you're not just wasting your time, you're doing some deep analytical thinking. So the time was right, and it was very fresh and refreshing. Some would say it's like we said, it was a sense of also going back to our roots. Why it's very popular now in this day and age is because society has suggested that this is the thing, and has been suggested stuff. So I don't think that people are running after the brisker derech because they have compared and contrasted other ways of learning it. As society has suggested to us, this is the way to learn and think. Chabad says in the article, sir, I want to tell you, sir, I don't know, even though I'm from my mother's side, from a very famous Lubavitcher family, the Shafets, right? And I dabbled in Chabad. I did learn the whole Tanya from cover to cover, and I dabble in, until this day, Mittler Rebbe. I love that, and I can't think of things that automatically, obviously, when you think abstractly enough, you always say, he cares about Midas and he cares about Midas, right? He talks about his pilots and he talks about his pilots, but I think they're worlds apart. I want to tell you, when I learned there's one Elul, I learned through the whole Madrigas Adam, from beginning to end. And at that time, I felt that somewhere between lines, I see Leshem, from the great Lithuanian Kabbalist, Leshem's grandfather. I sensed a little bit of Leshem, in the Madrigas Adam. And after I mentioned it to a friend of mine, and he said, the alternative article was by the Leshem. The Leshem, before he immigrated, he was the address for any Litvish guy that wanted to get into Kabbalah. Rav Kook went to the Leshem in Europe. They got together again back in Israel years later. Leshem was the address. Also, the alternative article did time by the Leshem. And but then the Leshem said, enough. You're in your own headspace. That's the story that this guy told me. And as he was telling me this story, and what this will end, we're really over time, and I've got to get back to writing my Sphira reader. Right, as I said to everyone on this forum, in honor of the birth of my granddaughter, now grandfather. But I'm a Yekas. I'm going to be Opa. Okay, so I'm putting out a Sphira reader. You can get it at the website that you see in the upper left corner on the screen. Go there tomorrow about noontime. It should be posted for download. So I've got to get back to work. You can also join my mailing list and get it by direct mail. If you go to the website and click on Ask the Rabbi, asked me to add you to my mailing list. So I really have to get back to it. So I'm going to end off with one story, classic story. I heard from Rav Chaim Uri Freund, who I used to learn Bechavrusa. He's a member of the Badatz Roshiva of Pinsk Karlin. And when I was a Rebbe at Eish Torah, he was also a Rebbe at Eish Torah, and we used to learn together. Very, very choshvi. I really wonder if he's still alive. I had lost contact with him already for a long time. Anyway, so Chaim Uri Freund told me the following story. He was talking about the how the Alter of Navardik was a man of steel. Right, be talking, oh man, he took it seriously, unseverable faith, and nothing could scare him, right? So, and to illustrate, Chaim Uri Freund said that there was during war, must have been World War One, I'm imagining. He was in Poland, making kiddush on Shabbos, and there was a shelling, terrible shelling, bombs, shelling, and then everyone was running for cover, and the house was shaking, and some of the loose beams were coming loose, and the altar of Navardik made kiddush, didn't stop, and now that not a drop of wine spilled out of the goblet, out of the becher. He held it with such confidence, such faith and confidence. He was a man of iron, right? His bitachon made him solid. Okay. So the so after Chaim Uri Freund tells me that, he tells me something else. This solid man, he was once in Varsha, was sharing accommodations with the Leshem, right, the gate Kabbalist, right? So the Alter Navardik, wakes up in the middle of the night, sees this bright light. He thinks there's a fire in the house. There must be a fire. He immediately goes to investigate, and it's the Leshem learning Kabbalah, and he was faced with shining with Ziv Ashkina, and this tough guy, the Alter of Navardik, passed out. Right? The Kedusha of the Leshem overwhelmed the Alter of Navardik. But Baal Musar is a Baal Musar is a Baal Musar. The Leshem wrote him a letter. The Alter of Navardik wrote a letter to the Leshem after that, and said, in Kala Gadla Shirainu Etzlacha, with all the greatness that we saw by you, Teda She'ein Shleimus Niknes Adam El Belimud Kovis Halavavis Mitzvahs, with all the greatness that we saw by you. Perfection can only be attained by learning Chovis Halavavis with excitement. So with all your greatness, perfection is learning Chovis Halavavis Mitzvahs. Okay, what is that? Baal Musar to the end. Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's here, go to the website in the upper left corner to download plenty of videos and shiurim and audios and parsha sheets, and look for the Sfira Sa'omer reader that will be posted tomorrow, roughly noontime, on the website. And subscribe, to this channel so you get notifications whenever we go online, and join the mailing list. Go to the website, click on Ask the Rabbi, and ask me to add you to my mailing list. And next scheduled event, Motzei Shabbos, 10:30. You could think about questions now already. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful Shabbos and keep safe.